Hello everyone, I am Amritpal Singh. I developed a new theory called Rommy's theory, and on the basis of this theory, I can prove that life will surely possible on Mars in future. First of all, we will discuss about our solar system.
Apollo 11, this is Houston, radio check, over. Back right.
Although no human has ever set foot on Mercury, we have a pretty good idea of what you would see.
We copy you down, Eagle.
If you were walking around on the surface of Mercury, it would look outwardly a lot like the moon.
When you step onto Mercury, you step onto a world with no real atmosphere, where the sky is as black as night and ablaze in sunshine, and where a drive is an off-road trek through at least a 3-billion-year-old battlefield.
Big craters, small craters, craters everywhere. So that's your first impression looking at it.
Like the moon, Mercury took most of its battering early on. A silent witness to the dawn of time, it's been undisturbed by a single drop of rain or breath of wind ever since.
For the most part, the surface of Mercury has been frozen in time for periods of billions of years. And you may say that's boring, but not necessarily. It's a good thing because these planets such as Mercury and the Moon preserve a record of what was going on during this critical early period of the solar system's formation. And so we can basically study it there because it's laying right on the surface.
It may never be possible to send a human to Mercury, but not so a robot. In 2011, when Messenger arrives in orbit, spare a thought for the tough little spacecraft circling a lonely planet, a very long way from our comfort zone. Move away from the sun, and you'd expect things to cool down a little. Venus, the picture of coolness and calm, all pale, beguiling, and cloaked in cloud. But the planet of love is shrouded in mystery. Drop below her treacherous veil at your peril.
T-minus 40 seconds, everything looks good for launch.
Planning a holiday to Venus. Nothing is as it should be here, on our twisted alien twin. 4.5 billion years ago, Venus and Earth started out as planetary twins.
They were formed right next to each other. They're very close to each other in the solar system. They have similar sizes.
Not only that, we now know that the planets were exchanging material early on, that bits of Earth were falling on Venus and bits of Venus were falling on Earth. So if life started on any of these worlds, it may well have spread among them through these little chips getting knocked off from all the impacts that were happening then, all the big collisions.
Ever wondered how alien a planet could be? How bad a climate can get? Try the planet next door. The best way to experience Venus is to hitch an imaginary ride on a Soviet Venera probe.
Well, it would be a wild ride.
The clouds start about 40 miles up, some 5 times higher than the Earth's.
What were those clouds made out of? They're not made out of water. They're made out of a completely different substance. They're made out of sulfuric acid. Everywhere you go, the atmosphere is going to try to eat you away.
As you get deeper, things heat up. The thickening atmosphere allows the sun's heat in, but not out. It's also getting dense, so dense, your probe drops like a coin in water.
And as we descended, the surface would gradually sort of appear to us as if we were approaching the bottom of the ocean.
Congratulations! You've arrived on the hottest surface in the solar system. Here, the official temperature is 460 degrees Celsius. Day or night, equator or pole, the searing heat never varies more than a few degrees. And it's why we have so few snapshots from the Venusian surface.
The third planet of our solar system is Earth. Earth has two polar ice caps and more than 70% of its surface is covered with water. Also, Earth has one natural moon which is continuously moving around Earth's axis.
In this vast cosmos, there is only one place we know where humans can survive. It seems as if the Earth was made for us. It supplies us with water to drink, food to eat, and air to breathe. It's the only home we have, and we rely on it entirely.
It's been said that the first person on Mars is alive somewhere on Earth today. Imagine it was you. What would you need to know? How might you get there, and what should you pack? What are some must-see sights, and what should you avoid? Think of this as your personal travel guide to exploring the Red Planet. There are some basic things you should know about Mars before leaving home. Most days will be clear and sunny, and cold. The average temperature on Mars is as bitter as midwinter in Antarctica. At about half the diameter of the Earth, Mars is a handy size, but it's much less dense than Earth, so only has about a third of the gravity. This is sunset as seen by Spirit, a cold blue sun dropping over a distant alien horizon. Looking up into the clear starry skies from the surface, you would see Mars' two tiny moons, Phobos, and even smaller, Deimos. With all the grace of a space potato and barely 17 miles long, Phobos has been targeted as a potential stepping stone for the first pioneering human mission to Mars. A test run before attempting the fuel-hungry and risky trip to the planet below.
Our sun. It's bathed us with light and energy for over 4.5 billion years. But like all things in the cosmos, our nurturing star will eventually die. And Earth could literally melt into the sunset.
When the sun gets 100 times brighter than it is now, the entire surface of the Earth will be incinerated. All the rock that composes the continents will melt and run into seas of molten lava. The Earth will be uninhabitable.
When the sun burns through all of its hydrogen at its core, it will eventually start contracting on itself because it's no longer burning through the hydrogen, fusing it together, creating this radiation pressure outwards to balance the gravitational pull inwards.
While hydrogen fusion will stop in the core, it will continue to fuse at a faster rate in the shell surrounding the core. The extra energy will expand the outer layers of the sun.
That'll mean that the sun will grow much more powerful, much more luminous, because the hydrogen shell will be fusing while the core is contracting at a greater rate than it normally would. All the pressure from the energy generated in this hydrogen-fusing shell will cause the outer parts of the sun to expand, making it into a red giant. I'm stuck here in the desert and I've run out of gas. But you know, I have a spare gallon here in the trunk. And if I pour this gas into the gas tank, that'll allow the car to keep going for a while longer. This is kind of similar to the sun. During the red giant stage, it's going to run out of hydrogen as fuel. But it'll have helium that can briefly, for a few tens of millions of years, fuse to carbon and oxygen, providing a new source of energy that'll keep the sun going for a while longer.
At the end of the initial red giant phase, the dying sun will enter this stable helium-burning phase. It'll become hotter, yet somewhat smaller, but this is merely a lull before the storm. This is because the sun's transition to a red giant actually comes in two phases. During the second phase, the helium will be exhausted in the core, which will now consist of carbon and oxygen. The core will again start to contract and heat up. But helium will still exist in the shell, and it will continue to fuse, forming more carbon and oxygen in the contracting core. And all of this will be surrounded by the hydrogen shell that's still fusing to helium.
After the helium changing into carbon uses up all of its energy, then the core begins to shrink a second time, the outer part expands a second time, and it's not very stable.
During the second red giant phase, the wild contraction and expansion will make our sun pulsate like a slow beating heart. The pulsations can occur every few hundred or 1,000 years. And with each pulsation, planetary pandemonium will ensue.
Mercury and Venus are doomed. They'll be engulfed by the red giant. However, there's been some debate in the scientific literature as to whether the Earth would actually be engulfed or not. The sun will be large enough to engulf the Earth.
Earth's future is uncertain because it lies on the borderline between being engulfed and surviving. But astronomers now have one possible sneak preview of our planet's ultimate fate. The Infrared Optical Telescope Array has captured close-up photos of a Death Star, Chi Cygni, which is approximately 50 light-years from Earth.
Chi Cygni is near the end of its red giant stage, when it's grown really big. And in those last few million years of existence, it starts pulsating. It actually pulsates every 400 years or so, getting bigger and brighter and smaller and fainter.
If the massively bloated star Chi Cygni were our sun, it would have consumed every planet out to Mars. Earth and all its wondrous forms of life would have been melded with the materials inside the dying star.
By Duky's changing place method, I explain us that how life is traveling in our solar system from one planet to another. Duky's changing place method tells us that when Mercury will merge in our sun, then Earth will turn into Venus and Mars most probably become Earth. Firstly, due to increasing the size of the sun, Mercury will be merged in our sun after 1 Duky's unit. 1 Duky's unit is the time from now to the time when Mercury planet will be merged in our sun. After that, moving on to the Venus, due to very high temperature and pressure, all the liquid material and gases inside the surface of Venus will come out and evaporate. Due to this process, the size and atmosphere of the Venus will decrease, and slowly after 1 Duky's unit, Venus will become a solid ball like Mercury having no atmosphere. Let's see then what will happen on Earth.
Strangely, our sun is now 30% brighter than it was at birth. As it ages, it will gradually grow even brighter and more powerful.
Our climate is very sensitive to the energy from the sun. So if you're worried about global warming, you worry about what humans are doing to the atmosphere, but you also need to know what the sun is doing to the atmosphere. The most recent estimate says that maybe 20% of all the warming that's happening, the global warming, is due to the sun.
In 1 billion years, our star's luminosity will be 10% greater. And temperatures on our planet will be 100 degrees hotter.
The moisture in the air is very good at trapping infrared radiation or heat. And so it's sort of like putting a blanket on the Earth. Now here's the bad part. As the Earth warms up, the oceans evaporate even more, we trap more heat, and so the Earth warms up more. And when the Earth warms up more, again we trap even more heat, and the effect can run away. It's what we call the greenhouse effect.
And on Earth, due to very high temperature, pressure, and absorption of water inside the surface, all volcanoes of Earth will become active. And due to this,
gigantic volcanic eruptions blasted billions of tons of sulfur high into the atmosphere. There, it mixed with water vapor to form concentrated sulfuric acid.
Now, all the surface of Earth is covered with the heavy layer of sulfuric acid clouds.
Also, as we know that Earth moon is receding away from Earth, after 1 Duky's unit, Earth will lose its own natural moon. That was the end of Earth, because now Earth has no moon and also covered with heavy layers of clouds of sulfuric acid, and at that time it will totally converted into the fate of the Venus. Now standing on the surface of Earth, you will meet absolutely incredible situation. First of all, we will see not the blue sky, we will see red sky, orange in color. This is the hell, real hell. Is Mars will really become Earth? If yes, then how and when? Let's see. First of all, we discuss about the size of planet Mars.
Surprisingly, the actual surface area is almost exactly the same as all the dry land on Earth, all shrunk to fit together without the oceans.
As we know that Mars has 2 polarized caps, but it's not enough. So let's see, had ice found somewhere else on Mars?
If you want to find life on Mars, first you need to find water. And not all the planet's water story is ancient history. There's been plenty of evidence frozen underground detected from orbit, but scientists have always wanted to touch and taste it to be sure. In 2008, they finally got their opportunity when NASA's Phoenix lander made a daring approach to the high Martian Arctic.
60 meters. Altitude sequence initiated.
There was not ever more excitement in my life than landing safely on Mars. I've been through the opposite. I've been through a landing that was not successful, and I did not want that to happen again.
The landing was not only perfect, the engines had exposed suspiciously white patches directly underneath the spacecraft. Water ice was just a few scrapes away.
We did find water ice, and we found that the soil in connection to it has calcium carbonate, a compound that forms in the presence of liquid water. If it had been wet, then we wanted to look for nutrients and food sources that could support microbes.
The water ice is proof of a valuable resource, both for any life forms still clinging on beneath the surface, and for future travelers.
We now know that these plains that you see stretching behind me are underlain only 2 or 3 inches deep by a sheet of ice, all the way as far as you can see. Great hockey rink. If you had a hockey team on Mars, all you need is a broom.
After 50 million years from now, one of the moon of Mars, named Phobos, will enter in the atmosphere of Mars and will merge in the Mars.
The days of Phobos are numbered. Possibly an asteroid that once strayed too close, the moon is trapped in a fatal gravitational embrace. Every passing century sees it drop 6 feet closer to death. In about 50 million years, its fall is expected to be complete.
After this incident, and due to increasing the temperature on Mars because of the sun, mostly ice on the surface will turn into water and will flow on the surface, and life will start on Mars underwater.
Water appears to be a key component for the origin of life. It was previously theorized that life began in a primordial soup, a warm pond containing energy and atmospheric elements to make amino acids. However, the most recent pioneering research makes a strong claim that the own chemical energy and rich proteins seeped up through hydrothermal vents deep under the ocean. Over time, this mixture jump-started life by producing living cells.
We know that liquid water is essential for life, and life probably gets started in a water and environment. Whether it is in a deep ocean, volcanic wells, or in a shallow pond, that is the only planet that we know where life is actually exists.
Water appears to be a key component for the origin of life. It was previously theorized that life began in a primordial soup, a warm pond containing energy and atmospheric elements to make amino acids. However, the most recent pioneering research makes a strong claim that the own chemical energy and rich proteins seeped up through hydrothermal vents deep under the ocean. Over time, this mixture jump-started life by producing living cells. Regardless of how life started, a fortunate event made it possible for complex creatures to evolve. Ancient underwater bacteria began to use water, carbon dioxide, and the sun's energy to produce carbohydrates in order to survive. This process, called photosynthesis, injected vast amounts of oxygen into seawater and eventually our atmosphere.
A huge step happened in Mars evolution when it got polluted with oxygen. We did not start with a rich oxygen in Mars atmosphere, but later the oxygen in Mars atmosphere that developed basically from photosynthesis allow life to get a lot more complex.
After a few billion years of planetary and biological evolution, the first plants and animals emerged from water onto land. It's estimated that modern humans came onto the scene a mere 200,000 years ago. And with evolution came the technological revolution of the planet. From ancient man-made monuments to bustling metropolitan cities.
And slowly, Mars will become Earth.
Thank you so much for watching my video. Okay. Hello everyone, I am Amritpal Singh. Hello everyone, I am Amritpal Singh.
ਘੰਟਾ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਭੈਣ ਦੀ ਦੁਬਾਰੇ ਗਲਤੀ ਕਰ ਦਿੰਦਾ ਫਿਰ ਕਰ ਦਿੰਦਾ ਗਲਤੀ ਘੰਟਾ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਡਾਇਲੌਗ ਯਾਦ
ਓ ਯਾਰ ਢੰਗ ਨਾਲ ਬਣਾ ਲਓ ਬਣਾਉਣੀ ਆ ਤਾਂ ਫੁੱਦੂ ਲੱਗਿਆ 2 ਘੰਟੇ ਵਿਹਲੇ ਅਸੀਂ
By Duky's changing place method, I explain us that how life is traveling in our solar system from one planet to another planet. Duky's changing place method tells that when Mercury will merge in our sun, then Venus will turn into Mercury, Earth will turn into Venus, and then Earth will turn into Venus, and probably he is our cameraman Amandeep Singh, and he is Satveer Singh, who जिन्होंने हो ਕੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਉਹ
ਬੇਲਾ ਸੀ ਯਾਰ
ਇਹ ਵੇਲਾ ਸੀ
ਇਹਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਕੰਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਇਹ ਕਦੇ ਪਾਪੜ ਖਾ ਲਏ ਕਦੇ ਪਾਣੀ ਪੀ ਲਿਆ ਕਦੇ ਕੁੜੀਆਂ ਦੇਖ ਲੀਆਂ ਹੋਰ ਕੋਈ ਕੰਮ
ਵੀਡੀਓ ਚੈੱਕ ਕੀਤੀ
ਅੱਜ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਬਦੌਲਤ ਡਿਊਕੀ ऐसे मुकाम तक पहुंचे हैं. Thank you to all my friend.